Hello and welcome. I'm Light and this is my channel. Today we're going to talk about a strange disappearance. Two, actually. A newlywed couple. I love these stories. It makes you wonder if someone wanted to disappear or were they met with foul play. And if someone disappears without a single trace, what happened then? How is that possible? Like I said, I love these stories. The Hydes met on a passenger ship traveling to Los Angeles in 1927. They were married on April 12th, 1928, and they set off for their honeymoon trip on the Green and Colorado rivers in October 1928. Back in those days, the Grand Canyon didn't have any commercial river trips, so the rapids were for seasoned explorers and professional expeditions only. The Hydes had no life jackets, nor any specialist equipment. Certainly not a trip for a pair of honeymooners in a homemade scow called Rain in the Face. Confirming the dangers early on in the trip, Glen fell out of their boat on a rapid. However, none of this seemed to deter the couple. Glen was an expert boat builder who built the 20-foot-long wooden sweep scow, and he had rafting experience on the Salmon and Snake Rivers in Idaho. In contrast, Bessie had no experience. She was a novice to rivers and rapids. But Glen was determined to set a new speed record for traveling through the Grand Canyon, and he wanted Bessie to make history with him as the first documented woman to run the canyon. Bessie was only 22 years old and described as a bohemian. She was an aspiring artist and poet, and according to the late Otis Doc Martson's library, the Hydes' plan was that they would run the canyon and then go on the lecture circuit and make a ton of money retelling their adventure. The couple were last seen on November 18th, 1928, and their scow was found in early December, about 3 weeks later. It was simply floating upright around River Mile 237. It was filled with their belongings and their supplies, which were fully strapped in. But Glen and Bessie were nowhere to be seen. There is evidence that they made it as far as River Mile 225, where they set up a camp. But a huge search team turned up. No trace of the couple. Beginning on October 20th, 1928, the Hydes started their adventure in the city of Green River in Utah, and they made a successful run through many major rapids of the Green and Colorado rivers. The two estimated that it would take them no more than a month and a half to complete their journey. Almost a month into the trip, they spent a few days restocking at Grand Canyon Village, which had been located on the south rim on November 16th. At this time, they spoke with a reporter from the Denver Post, assuming that their final destination, Needles, California, was just a few weeks away. They hiked along the Bright Angel Trail, where they met brothers Ellsworth and Emery Kolb. They were famous photographers who had a cliffside studio. Glen and Bessie had gone into the studio and introduced themselves to the Kolbs. They explained that they were honeymooners who had been rafting on the river for 26 days. The Kolb brothers said that the couple had asked to have their photo taken along the canyon rim. They said that they would return and pay for it when their trip was completed. According to Emery, when Glen told him that they didn't have life preservers, he warned them that the waters ahead were really dangerous, and Glen responded with a laugh. Emery offered the two his own life preservers, but they refused, saying that they could swim anything. Also, according to Emery, Bessie was said to have looked nervous about the remaining journey ahead. As Glen and Bessie were getting ready to leave and to walk down the trail to their boat, Emery's daughter Emily came out, and she was dressed really nice. Bessie looked at her and made the comment, "I wonder if I shall ever wear pretty shoes again." Other people who encountered the couple during their layover later stated that Bessie seemed to want to leave the trip. It is said that a man named Adolph Sutro went back with the couple into the canyon. He was taking photographs and even rode with them a short distance in the boat. If this is true, then Sutro was likely the last person to ever see this honeymooning couple alive. Then, by early December, Glen and Bessie had not been heard from. Emery Kolb initiated a search of the area, and this included a small plane that flew through the inner gorge of the canyon. The pilot saw the intact scow caught on the rocks in the river about 15 miles south of Diamond Creek on December 20th, 1928. They assumed that somewhere in the canyon, the two were on a ledge waiting to be found after 21 days. When the rescue party reached the lonely boat floating in the river, they found food, clothing, books, and Betsy's journal. They also found a camera which had the final photo to have ever been shot near the river mile 165 on or about November 27th. The last entry in Betsy's journal was on November 30th, and it was written near Diamond Creek. Glen's father, Reith Hyde, who was 70 years old, hired a group of men to search the canyon within the area where Glen and Bessie likely traveled near Diamond Creek. He even enlisted Ellsworth and Emery Kolb to help him. But after 41 long days of searching, they had no success, and the couple were missing without a trace. Since the couple's disappearance, there have been plenty of mysterious stories. What happened out there on the river? The obvious answer was that they both died in the rapids, but then how was the boat found intact and upright and everything still strapped in? Perhaps Glen was a bully who forced Bessie to continue the journey when she didn't want to, and maybe even killed her in a fit of rage. Or perhaps Bessie killed Glen and somehow managed to disappear. Some friends of a woman named Georgie Clark, a woman who had gained fame for her rafting adventures in the Grand Canyon, speculate that she was, in fact, Bessie Hyde. A potential link between Georgie and Bessie started when friends were looking through her personal items following her death in 1992. Upon looking at Clark's personal effects, her friends learned that her birth certificate indicated that her real name was Bessie DeRoss, not Georgie Clark or Georgie White, which was another surname she sometimes used. Her friends' curiosity was piqued even more when they found the marriage license of Glen and Bessie Hyde in her home with a pistol in her drawer. At some point, an investigator concluded that the two women were not the same person, that upon looking at photographs they didn't appear the same, and that the items found in her home were likely souvenirs. However, it seems very odd to me that she would have a birth certificate that said her real name was Bessie, and also the marriage certificate of a woman named Bessie and her husband. Then, on a 1971 commercial boat trip, an elderly woman called Liz Cutler announced over the evening campfire that she was Bessie Hyde. A boatman whose name was George Billingsley half-jokingly asked, "What did you do with Glen?" The woman didn't look up, but she replied, "I killed him." She told a story of how the honeymooners had a fight, and that she had stabbed Glen and hiked out to Peach Springs, Arizona, and caught a bus back east to start a new life. Further investigation failed to prove a link between the woman and the disappearances, and she was later identified as a psychology professor from Ohio who liked to play mind games. A very strange piece of trivia. In 1976, a male skeleton was found on the property of Emery Kolb, hidden in his garage. At first, it was thought that it would be Glen's, but as it turned out, it wasn't. However, it does make one wonder if Emery couldn't be involved in the murder of these two. He did insert himself into a search twice. To this day, the disappearance of Glen and Bessie Hyde on the Colorado River remains a mystery, and they disappeared without a trace. If you like this video and you have not already done so, please subscribe. Also, please click that thumbs up. The more thumbs up we get, the more our videos are recommended. And click that bell so that you can be notified the second new content is uploaded and the second we go live for our podcasts. Thank you, and good night.